Hello, I'm Bruce Nielsen. I am the Machine Learning and AI Practice Manager for Mindfire Tech. I'm going to do a series of videos about how to integrate artificial intelligence into your applications. But let me tell you a little bit about myself before we get started. So I got bit by the AI bug several years ago, and I ended up going back to school, and I got a master's degree in machine learning from Georgia Institute of Technologies. Right after I graduated, ChatGPT exploded into the mainstream, making AI what was on everybody's mind. So by pure dumb luck, I ended up finding myself slightly ahead of the curve. What I'm going to show you today is I'm going to show you my AI version of Karl Popper. Karl Popper is a famous philosopher. I really enjoy Karl Popper. I wanted to have a study tool to be able to study him more carefully. So creating an AI that would create a persona of him that I could interact with and ask questions, and then it would quote to me what his actual writings were, and then I could look up those quotes. It would actually present them on the screen, as we're going to see. I thought that would be a really useful tool as I was studying this philosopher in more detail. AI Karl Popper was created using a Retrieval Augmented generation pipeline, which is a fairly simple technique that allows you to actually retrieve writings out of a database of his writings, quotes, paragraphs from his books, and then match it up against what the user's queries are. AI Karl Popper may look really sophisticated, and it's actually a pretty impressive little demo, but this is a very simple technique. It's something that any decent programmer could do. And that's one of the main things I want to really get across during these videos, is that AI is just not that hard. Well, that's not quite true. It could be very difficult and mathematically intense for some sort of purposes, obviously. But if you're just trying to integrate AI into your applications, really any existing programmer can do it. Really, there's existing tools and there's techniques that are available. A lot of them, as we're going to see, are open source, so they're entirely free, and they do the hard work for you of getting AI working so that you can concentrate on just putting it into your applications. So really, what I want to emphasize is that there's nothing to be afraid of with AI, that it's not that difficult to integrate AI into your applications. The demo I'm going to show in this video is also, maybe think of it as, this is the goal. The videos that I'm going to be building, they build towards making a tool like this and teach you what you're going to need to know. Now, I already have a series of blog posts that actually detail the exact same information, and I will include that as a link in the show notes below. In fact, you can think of these videos as a sort of condensed version of my blog posts so that it's easier to understand them and to comprehend them and to learn the techniques that I'm trying to explain. Besides just being a fun little passion project, this project was also how Mindfire Tech put together what I call our open source AI stack. Mindfire Technology specializes in coming up with low-cost AI solutions. AI solutions can very quickly become very expensive if you're paying on a per token basis, and sometimes that is the best way to go about it, so I don't want to downplay that as a solution. But for some smaller clients, that may not be the best way to do it. So we have specialized in an open source AI stack to allow us to be able to create less costly solutions. So here is my Karl Popper chatbot. It's very basic interface. Karl Popper famously solved the problem of induction. Let's ask him about induction. So what is your view on induction? All right, so it's going to think for a second. And what it's doing really is it's using a Retrieval Augmented generation, or RAG pipeline, behind the scenes. And you can see what's happening here. I'm trying to make this as visible as possible as part of the demo, and also because I intended this as a sort of study tool. So you can see that based on that question, my question was, what is your view of induction? It actually went out and it did a search all through a database of Karl Popper's writings that I put together. And it then comes back and it finds paragraphs from his books that best match that question. And then it scores them and sorts them. And you can see we got several, 5, I give a max 5 at the moment, but several high-scoring paragraphs. It then uses that, feeds that over to the large language model, which in this case is Google's Gemini, which is a really great model for stuff like this. Although we could use like Hugging Face models or ChatGPT. You can switch in and out whichever model you want. And then he's going to come back with an answer, and he's going to say, induction, a persistent phantom haunting the halls of epistemology. As I've argued extensively, most explicitly and then notice it gives a actual reference. That was one of the options here. There is no induction. We never argue from facts to theories unless by way of refutation or falsification. Popper being known for falsification and for proving that induction did not exist. So this is actually a pretty good answer. It kind of matches Karl Popper's personality. I mean, of course it would, because it's essentially summarizing his actual writings. It's really a great way to be able to interact with the writings of Karl Popper this way. One interesting thing that you can do with a large language model like this is you can ask Karl Popper questions that wouldn't have made sense to him in his lifetime. But let's try, tell me about Bozo the Clown. Now what it's going to do, I mean, obviously the writings of Karl Popper never spoke of Bozo the Clown. However, it's still going to go out, and the pipeline, the way I've written it, it's smart enough to try to find kind of something that it might still be able to use. So in this case, it found a quote that says, "There are few episodes in the career of man whose windbaggery has given rise to modern nationalism as well as to modern idealist philosophy." Okay, so based on this quote, it's going to try to come up with an answer. It's going to say, Bozo the Clown. While I appreciate a good jest, my primary focus lies in the realm of critical thinking and pursuit of objective truth. Okay, and then he says, I find myself reminded of instances in history where figures of questionable merit are elevated to positions of influence and respect. They may remind us of when such clowns are taken seriously and they are made the object of kind of worship and solemn, although often boring studies. In other words, it actually found that in this quote about windbaggery, that it actually mentions clowns. And so it was able to work some of the writings of Karl Popper into the answer. I've tried lots of different things trying to play with AI Karl Popper. I've played Dungeons and Dragons with him. I have asked him silly questions like Ginger or Marianne, and he always manages to come up with some sort of answer. Now, one of the other things that you can do with him is you can ask him questions that wouldn't be contained in his database at all. So for example, I might ask, let's clear the chat actually first. Let's say, what is your wife's name? Now that doesn't appear anywhere in his writings. It actually has her nickname. So it's going to come back and he's actually going to answer his wife's name is Henny. Okay, so that's her nickname. That's not her real name. So I'm going to say, but what is her full name? Okay, and now it says, you wish to know Henny's full name. It was Josephine Anna Henninger. Okay, so what happened here is it first attempted to answer out of the writings of Karl Popper, but then I got more specific and I forced it to try to come up with an answer not found in the books. And in this case, Google's Gemini, of course, knew the answer to this question. So it was able to still give an answer by the way I've prompted, engineered the prompts. It will actually ignore the quotes found in the books if the question is better answered just directly by Google's Gemini. So as you can see, there's a lot here, even though this is a really simple demo. And this is one of the things I love about AI. There are just some amazing open source tools out there that make it so simple to be able to integrate AI into your applications, even if you are a beginner. So if you're a beginner, don't worry. That's really who I'm aiming these videos at. I will walk you through theory and practice, and I will help you understand exactly how to use the existing open source tools that are out there to integrate AI into your applications. Really, I'm assuming that you're a programmer, you've got knowledge of programming, but I'm not assuming you have any knowledge of AI whatsoever. Don't forget to like and subscribe below, and I look forward to making additional videos for you in the future and seeing you here. Thank you.